Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this next video lesson. We're going to continue talking about functions, and specifically I want to create a sphere calculator using functions. So let me go ahead and open up the toolbox. As you can see, I just named this project CS111 Functions Sphere Calculator. I'm going to go ahead and use a button, a label, and a text box. So I'm just tapping on these and then tapping back over here, and I want to change the font property for these. So I'm going to open up the Properties panel and place that over here. I don't need the Solution Explorer. And I'm going to change the font property to 12 points for each of these items. So I'll select the label, and we'll go to Font Properties. I'll open this up. It says currently for me the size is 7.875. I'll just simply type in 12, enter. And I'll do the same thing for the other items. 12, enter. And for the text box as well, that'll be 12. And then press enter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the label to the upper left hand corner, and let me go down over here to the text property, and so I'll just say enter the radius, because when you're going to determine the surface area and the volume for a sphere, you need to know the radius. So I'll have the user enter that within a text box, and then I'm going to place a button right here. And then over here, I'll just simply say calculate. I'll place a label underneath here. And that label is where the user output is going to be. So I'll change this from auto size false to from true to false. Border style, we'll put fixed single. And then I'll resize this as follows, something like that. I'm going to want two lines, something like surface area, colon, and then whatever the surface area happens to be. And then I want to also have volume, right? Volume, colon, and then whatever the number happens to be. So something like that looks pretty good. I think that'll accommodate two lines. I don't want there to be text in there initially, so I'm going to go over here to the text property, remove that so that it is empty, and then I'll place this something like that. I'm going to get rid of the minimize and the maximize box, so double click, and then over here for the text property, we'll say sphere calculator. Okay, so I have the sphere calculator, and let me go ahead and give names to the various items. So I'm going to select the text box and go back over here to the top. For the name property, we're going to say txt radius. And then for the button, we'll say btn calculate. And then finally for the label, for the label we'll say LBL result. Make sure when you're done you save your work. Okay, let me just double check my work. TXT radius, BTN calculate, LBL result, everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and click Save All. And now I'm ready to start typing code. Before I do that, let me open up a web browser so that I can look at the formulas for a sphere. So let me go ahead and open up Microsoft Edge. And specifically go to Google, because within here, if I type in sphere formula, say for example, you'll notice that it gives me the volume, and I also have the surface area equation. So I can always use this website to double check my work. Those are the equations that I'll be using. All right, so let me go back over here to Visual Studio, double click on the button so I can start entering code. I don't need the properties panel here. All right, So at this point, I'm going to start with my comments. So I have declarations, get user input, calculations, and output. All right. Now, let's talk about creating two functions. Now, whenever you're creating a function inside of a C# program, you want to make sure that you stay within the class. And so you see that that's the curly braces right here. If I place my cursor right there, you'll notice that the matching curly braces right there, that's the end. So we don't want to go outside of that. So you'll notice that I'm placing my cursor right there. It's before this curly brace, before this curly brace. You know, you might be thinking, hey, what does that curly bracket belong to? So what I'll do is I'll just go over here and copy and paste. You see a lot of programmers do stuff like this. They'll copy this, and we want to make sure that we match it with that curly brace, and so that's over here. I'll put a comment and then paste. So that curly bracket belongs to this form class. And so a class is like an encompassing entity that includes all of your functions. Anytime you double click on a button, it takes you to this particular code fragment right here. All of that stuff belongs here. All right, so now I can place my cursor right here. As you can see, I'm still inside of that class because I'm inside of the curly braces. And now I can go ahead and type in whatever I want. Well, let's say that I want to create a function called calculate surface area, and you need the radius, and I need back from you the surface area. So I'll start off with double because that's what you're going to return back to me. And then calculate surface area, parentheses. Now, what parameters do you need to do your job? Well, in order for you to do your job, you need the radius. In here, I'll just simply call it radius parameter. And I'm going to put an open and close curly braces. Now, the reason why you have a squiggly underline right there is because you haven't done anything. You haven't returned anything. So what I'm going to do is return the surface area. So we'll just simply say return. Now, what is the equation for surface area? Well, I have it over here. It looks like it's 4 pi r squared. So I'm going to say 4.0 times, and let's see here, what is it? Pi. So math.pi times, and then over here, r squared. Well, I can use the math.pow function. That is allowing me to enter a base and also an exponent. And as you can see here, the base is going to be the radius, and 2 is going to be the exponent. Well, I have the radius. That's what I gave you. So if you type in radius parameter, comma, and notice over here it's saying, okay, you're going to give me a double because we're raising this to a certain power. And so that's supposed to be 2.0. And then I'll put a semicolon at the very end. So what this program does is returns the surface area based on you giving it the radius parameter. And so as you can see here, functions like this, you give them something, they perform some sort of a mathematical function, and then it's going to return what the result is. Okay? All right, so after that, I'm going to press enter a couple of times. I've just finished the function for calculate surface area. Let's do the same thing for calculate volume. So what I'll do now is say double, then calculate volume. And what are you going to give me? Well, same thing. I'm going to give you the radius. Once you have the radius, then you'll be able to determine what the volume is. All right, so now I'll say return, and then I'll just start typing the equation for volume. So let me go back over here, change this to volume, and it says that the volume is 4 over 3 times pi times r cubed. Okay, so what I'll do is go back over here, 4.0 divided by 3.0 times, let's see here, pi, okay, so math.pi, there it is, times, and it says r cubed, okay, so that would be math.pow, that's how I'm going to be able to get the r is the base, the cubed is the exponent. So do I have the radius? Yeah, that's what I gave to you. So we'll take that radius and we're going to raise that to a certain power, specifically to the third power, as you see over here in the equation. So you call me calculate volume. What am I going to do? First of all, you got to give me the radius, and then I will return to you the calculation of the volume of the sphere. Okay, comments or questions? So now let's use these two so that I can determine what the surface area and the volume are for a sphere. So I'm going to go back over here to the top. Inside of my, I'm going to call it the main program, but this is what we use, the click event, to get the radius from the user and do our calculation. So it looks like I'm going to have to create a double, and this will be a radius. So double radius value, that's what the user is going to give to me. And then what I can do is I can also create two additional variables that are the surface area and the volume. So let's say that I have surface area and also volume. All right, well, now that I have the surface area and the volume, I can use those to place that data into the label. So I think I'm going to create a string because this is what I see. I see surface area, colon, whatever that is, the next line, volume, colon, whatever that is. I see two lines indicating what the surface area and the volume are for this particular label. So I'm going to create a string called output, and I'll set it to nothing. Now, over here in the get user input, radius is going to be convert dot to double, and I'm going to get the data from this txt radius text box and place that into the radius variable. All right, well, now that I've got that, I can perform my calculations. All right, so the calculations, what I'll do is I'll say surface area is going to be, now, let me call the surface area function, which is this guy over here. So I just simply type in, what's the name of the function? Well, the name of the function is calculate surface area. Parentheses. All right, now you'll see this drop down over here that is showing me, or this tip is showing me what it is that I need to give to this function. Well, it looks like I need to give to it a double. Well, isn't this exactly what I typed over here? So it's a little shorthand or a shortcut showing you what it is that it requires in terms of the type and an idea of what kind of data you're looking for. In this case, we're looking for a radius. Well, I have the radius. The user just entered the radius, and I have grabbed it here. So I'm going to give you the radius. And what you're going to do is you are going to return to me, you see the word double over here? It keeps on disappearing, but the word double right there, right below my I-beam, that's what it's going to return. So I give you this, you return a double, and I place this into a double called surface area, because that's what you do. You calculate the surface area. Similarly, we'll say for volume, that's going to be, and I'll just simply type in cal, and there it is, calculate volume, this guy right here. Double click, parentheses. So it looks like I need to give you the radius, you calculate the volume, and you're going to return to me a double. So the thing that you're going to return to me, I'm going to put into this variable called volume. So I type in the radius because that's what you need to do your job. And there we go. Okay, so I've determined what the surface area is. I've determined what the volume is. Now I can go ahead and place that into my output string. So I'll say output, and we'll type this over here. And I want something like this, surface area, colon, and then I want to display whatever that surface area happens to be. Well, I'm going to concatenate this because this is a string. I'm going to concatenate this with, and what I'll do is I'll just simply say surface area dot to string, and I'll put an F2 right there. Now, as you'll recall, I could have done this. So I'm going to erase this temporarily, and then I'm going to put it right back. I could have done this. I could have said convert dot to string, and then whatever the value is for surface area. That would have been perfectly acceptable. But let's say that I only want 2 numbers after the decimal point, or 3 numbers after the decimal point. I want to control somehow what the number looks like. So if you want to do that, the other approach is like this, surface area dot to string, and then this F right here stands for a fixed number of digits after the decimal point, and then that 2 is saying specifically 2 numbers after the decimal point, or 3 or 4, so forth and so on. All right, so this is the approach that I'll use to display the surface area, because I've already solved for it, specifically with 2 numbers after the decimal point. All right, now I want to go to the beginning of the next line. So I will concatenate, and the way that we do that is we type in the word environment dot new line. So what that does is it goes to the beginning of the next line. Now that we are at the beginning of the next line, I want to say volume. So I'll concatenate and another quotation mark with the word volume. And then we get out of that quotation mark, and I'm going to concatenate the actual volume. So let me use a similar approach that I did over here. For volume, I'll just do this. I'll type in the word volume dot to string, and then within the parentheses, I'll put quote F2, once again just indicating that I want 2 numbers after the decimal point. And then, of course, don't forget your semicolon at the very end. All right, now that we've obtained that data, we've calculated the surface area and volume, we're going to output that to a string. Let's go ahead and place the final results into a label. And so we have that label called LBL result. We're going to put that into the text property, and I'm going to put output straight into there. You don't have to convert to string because this thing is already a string. As you can see here, the word string. It's already a string, so all you have to do is to simply put a string into the text property of a label. When you're done, go ahead and save your work. Okay, so now let's go ahead and run the program and see what happens. Okay, so here's our program. Let me go ahead and type in the number 4, calculate. So it says that the surface area is this, that the volume is this. I can double check by going over here and typing in the number 4. So it looks like the volume should be 268.08. Yep, 268.08. And what about the surface area? So over here, if I enter the number 4, 201.06, 201.06, which is exactly what we have. So that's the verification. Obviously, I could type in any number that I want over here for the radius. Calling calculate will take me to that specific code area right here when that event occurs, and then determine what the surface area, what the volume is, using functions. Now, do I have to do this? Do I have to use this output string? No, I don't. So let me just give you, I don't know, like version 2, just to show you how else you can do this. I'm going to comment this out. And if I wanted to do that, let's say, for example, that I didn't create a surface area and a volume. I want to just call the function directly. I could do that as well. So I could say output is going to be surface area. Okay, now let me just call the function directly, which is called calculate surface area. You still need a radius, as you can see over here. So I type in radius. Now check this out. Dot toString. Wow, I can do that within a function call as well. So that's something for you guys to remember. I'll do the same thing over here, F2, indicating that I want two numbers after the decimal point for whatever this result is going to be. Because remember, what does this thing do? It returns a double. So of the double that you return, format it in such a way that there's two numbers after the decimal point. I want to go to the beginning of the next line, so I'll say environment, new line. And then I want to concatenate that with the word volume, colon space. I want to concatenate that with, now let me call the function responsible for solving the volume. So that's called calculate volume. Oh, there it is. Tab. And then, parentheses, you need a radius to be able to do your job. Okay, so I have that over here. I got that from the user. So let me give you the radius. Dot toString, and then F2, and then colon. So, oh, I didn't type this correctly, sorry. There we go. All right, so this works, and this works. Here, I created a surface area and a volume because I thought that would be very clear for you guys at first. I'm going to calculate the surface area and put that into surface area. I'm going to calculate the volume and then put that into volume. And then this output string, or this output statement, actually takes those words, surface area and volume, and outputs them to a string. Do I need to do that? No. As you can see over here, I called the function directly and did the same thing as this output statement above. In fact, if I run it again and type in a number, like the number 4, say for example, the same surface area, the same volume comes up. All I did was just use these values directly, right? By calling the function, I know that this thing returns something. And what it returns, I'm going to concatenate it to the string, and so forth and so on with the calculate volume as well. It's supposed to return something, it places it back into here, and then everything is in the output. And that's it. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.